I will now take audience recognition on agenda items only. If you could come up and sign in with Ms. LaPera. Seeing none, I will now turn the meeting over to Mr. Copeland.
Good evening, everyone. I'd ask the board to take note of recommendation for action items, contract approvals, number 4, A through just A and B. Administration recommends that the Board of School Directors approve the attached contract with Dr. Gene Stanley for professional development with the goal of expanding the support of student, staff, and faculty in regard to their socio-cultural identities and socio-emotional support. Contract is for the term October 2015 to June 30, 2016 for a not-to-exceed amount of $40,000. The administration in B recommends that the Board of School Directors approves the attached contract with the VEX Robotics for providing training and associated materials for robotic systems and STEM-based project-based instruction in the high school robotics classrooms for the term of November 2015, June 30th, 2016, at a cost of $10,139. Administration takes note that Dr. Stanley's contract is really a combination of several smaller contracts simply brought together into one for simplicity.
And just want to add that both of these contracts were discussed at length and vetted thoroughly by the curriculum committee on this past Wednesday, and want to open it up now for questions or comments from the board. Please.
I've had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Stanley on a number of occasions, and I found her to be great with the students, really thoughtful. I'm really glad that she'll be continuing to do her work for us. I think she brings a really helpful perspective.
Thank you. Okay, is there a motion to approve?
I so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you. There, at the curriculum committee meeting, there were a number of presentations that were made. One, even though it's earlier in the school year, we're happy to give you an update on the new high school program, Lunch and Learn. So let me turn it over to Mr. Cody.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Good evening, board. Mr. Hughes and Mr. Eveslog send their apologies. They have other commitments tonight, so I'll be presenting for them this evening. So I want to start off by saying when I visited both high schools at open house night, I had the opportunity at both of the high schools to sort of navigate the hallways with students and parents, and took the opportunity to ask some of the students, so how's Lunch and Learn, and got some really positive feedback at the time. And at the time, a lot of students were saying, well, it's really a little too early to tell. You know, we've only been in it for a little bit, but we can share that they had the opportunity to have choice to go to certain classrooms, to either talk with teachers, get clarification on some of the lessons that they were working on, and the opportunity to start moving ahead and getting ahead of some of the work because they knew that they had other projects coming up or after-school activities. So with the help of Mr. Kapkin and the office of Mr. Young, we were able to get over to both high schools and capture about an 8-minute video for you to see and experience what the students are experiencing and the teachers. The beginning of the video, it's a little difficult to hear Mr. Hughes because of the fact that he's engaged in the Lunch and Learn, and he's manning his station in the cafeteria with students. So it'll be a little difficult to hear him, and then it'll quiet down a bit.
The idea and the concept behind Lunch and Learn is to build an hour in the day for students to have the ability to see teachers, to get some work done if they need that, to take a break maybe for some getting some work, to be able to visit things and maybe go to a weight room or maybe go play basketball in the gym, or to just have some downtime for themselves. So that's the concepts or the theories behind why we built this hour time. So it's kind of relatively new, maybe week 5 or 6. Beginning, it was a little new to the kids so much that they were trying to figure it out. But what I have seen is actually pretty incredible. I've seen kids working with other kids in small groups and collaborative groups, working on assignments that maybe they didn't have time to do after school because everybody's so busy running to all of their different activities. And now they've got time built in the day where they can meet, discuss, talk. I've seen in certain areas in some of the collaborative spaces as we're starting to build them, and hopefully we'll continue to build them, I'm seeing kids working on math problems together or web assignments together. I'm also seeing some students I watched yesterday when I walked downstairs and I saw some of the dance team members teaching some of the newer dance team members moves for the upcoming pep rally that was going on. I'm seeing the teachers actually having lunch with a larger group of students, talking not only academics but just kind of building relationships, which is pretty cool. So that's kind of the beginning things that as this grows, I'm hoping it continues to be as effective. I think it's something what we need to do is continue to get some feedback. Maybe at the end of a 7-week time period, get some feedback from kids. So I've already done some focus groups with kids. Some are excited about it. Some say it's actually very helpful for them. Some are used to an older system and saying they just need more time with it. I'd like to see it actually blossom even more. And what I mean by that is to think about, so maybe we do some guest speakers and guest series. Maybe we also look at a lot more individualized things that are interest to kids, and we have those available. The key though to everything is to make sure that academically we have the kids who are, have the ability to have some rest time, but have some ability to get some work done. And then we also have the ability that we have to guide the students that aren't using the time effectively.
I go to my tutor, I go to the library to study for a test coming up. Finish some homework I didn't do last night. I go to the gym and play basketball, eat. Some kids don't use the time wisely. Some kids, they use an hour, they take advantage of the hour. They don't take advantage of it, don't take advantage of the hour. And they do nothing. Just around all the time.
Some kids just eat peppers and watch 2K pack openings and then go play basketball.
I have been using Lunch and Learn to get homework done and to check with some of my teachers in preparation for tests. In the beginning I was hesitant, but I think this could actually be a really good thing. I think the negatives of it all depend on the individual student, because there are some students who will use the time to work with their teachers or get work done, and there are those who will just use it as a free period.
Well, sometimes when I have homework, it's good that I can do my homework, but sometimes when I don't have homework, then I'm just sitting in the hallway with friends for an hour, and it can get kind of boring. But sometimes it's fun, but it's also boring. I like the schedule last year better because we had lunch, but then at the end of the day we had half an hour, which was a good amount of time.
Yeah, Lunch and Learn is an opportunity for our students to kind of enrich their educational experience by going to see teachers. Let's say a student is out for a class, they can come in, they can find the work that they missed, they can get guidance on that work. They miss a quiz, they can make up that quiz during that time. It's a great opportunity to, if a student is struggling in a certain area, to come in and get some help, to get them back on course. I think it's great too. I sponsor Build On. I have Build On kids that come in and we can talk about projects that are upcoming, fundraisers and things like that. So during my office hours, it's an excellent time to really work one-on-one with students or work in small groups with students that you don't get the opportunity as much to do in a classroom of 25, 30 students. We did academic recovery for the last few years, and students sign up and they're there the entire time. And with that, if I need to see a student for 5 minutes because they have a question on a homework problem, they're then trapped here for the next 25 minutes. So a student can come see me, I can work with that student on that homework problem, they buy in. They can then go to another teacher who they have, maybe they missed a quiz, and they can use that time to work with that teacher to make up that quiz. So I'll have a cycle of students coming in and coming out. Some students will need more time, and I can set them up, I can talk with other students. I have found nothing but an incredibly positive learning atmosphere, an opportunity to be one-on-one with students, and it's also just a great personal connection that I make with students in this atmosphere.
I usually work through both lunches. I don't really lunch. I mainly learn.
Yeah, I do pretty much the same. I use it to capitalize on time to do my homework.
It's really nice because you're able to have the freedom to eat lunch while you work.
Lunch and learn.
So far, I think it's awesome. We're getting a lot more student involvement, particularly compared to RAM. And I think I probably have 5 to 8 kids come in every day. I think some students are doing learn and learn, and some are doing lunch and lunch, and they need to find that balance. I do like lunch and learn a lot. I think it's super valuable to be able to have a chance to meet with students every single day, and they'll know that I'm available for at least 30 minutes.
It's been surprisingly helpful.
Yes, I've sometimes been behind on homework, and I've had to do homework in lunch and learn, and I've gotten my homework done, and I've gotten better grades now because it's like another study hall, and you can. For the classes that are after lunch and learn, you can
Study
catch
for
up.
them, and I use the time to study for my upcoming test.
Well, we're currently spending time with our friends right now. Usually what I do, depending on what teacher I need to go visit, I'll have one lunch for eating and the other one for learning, hence lunch and learn. But I like it.
I enjoy lunch and learn because it's like one big frame, and you get to spend time with your friends. I always study for my test.
I never do work during lunch and learn. Just sit here and eat. Quiet.
It's the best thing that ever happened to this school. I mean, there's nothing better. You get so much done.
At philosophy, lunch and learn's been incredible. I mean, look at this. Right now we have one student here working on a quiz. We have another student making up a quiz. We have another student who came in, she's making up a quiz, but before that she went over a test with me. And before that we had kids doing work for upcoming things, looking over their homework that's due next week, or looking over questions that are due next week. So it's just been an incredible thing. It's really worked out well for us. The only issue I have with Lunch and Learn is I would like to sign up kids who I think could use some extra time or extra attention. And there's no way you can do that for a student or a group of students who you really think could use that enrichment time. If that was a way we could solve or figure into their lunch and learn, I think it would just improve this whole environment, whole situation. But as you can see, my numbers aren't over the top. I would like to see more kids come in, but there's no way to make a kid go to your learn. I mean, sometimes they just want to come in, tell me a story about what's going on in their life. Sometimes they want a kid just dropped off and talk to me about college recommendations. I mean, you get the whole gamut, and I think that's what makes it a cool place, and I think that's what Harron's about, you know what I mean? It's not just about school, it's also about, what's going on in kids' lives, what's going on in your life, develop relationships, and, make it a nice, cool place to be.
So with that, just a couple of slides to update the board. There were some logistical and philosophical thinking behind the whole lunch and learn process, and one of those being the strategic plan. As we were working through the strategic plan, to think differently of how we can get students active during their day, during the day, instead of all of the time at the end of the day where students would need to leave for a sport. So we were trying to find different ways philosophically to do that. And much of the work, again, with the high schools working within their PLC groups and the work that they've been going through with Peter Noonan. So what exactly is Lunch and Learn? It's an opportunity where there's an hour of the day where there's no classes being held. Teachers are on lunch duty for a half hour and then on learn duty for another half hour during the day. So in essence, there's no one scheduled during that particular day in terms of teachers or classes running. All hands are on deck from the administrative staff and teacher staff to support students through this process of Lunch and Learn. Some of the options for availability, students are in the cafeteria eating lunch. Others are spending their entire hour eating lunch if they don't have something that they need to do. The library is available for students to access. There's silent study areas, there's quiet areas. The gym and the weight room with other exercise options are available. Art, music, family and consumer science, and we allow for downtime. Students that just need that break during the day to go to a quiet spot and sit, and there's collaborative areas set throughout the building for students to engage in conversation, to talk about courses, to help one another through the process of learning. So there are some learning students earning the right to choose, and right now we focus on a supervised model, which is our current practice, where students are assigned to designated areas for 30 minutes for reinforcement and intervention, and this is staff monitored. The other is really choice, where students have a lot of choice right now in where they're going and what they're doing. As we move on throughout the course of the year, you heard the one teacher talk about we can't force students to come to us. Later down the line, the high school administrative team is looking at options for monitored planning. This would be where students have choice for an area but must have an academic focus. So if they're not doing particularly well in a subject area, students could then be assigned. So the high schools are looking at that particular intervention as well. There were challenges that really were unknown, and they learned as they went to different school districts to find out more about Lunch and Learn. Really one of the biggest areas was really accepting this organized chaos, because if you experience Lunch and Learn, and the first time I walked in, I'm thinking like, wow, there's kids everywhere. And they're eating in the hallway, and they're eating in the classroom. It took a while for students to sort of figure it out, and we're about 6 weeks into Lunch and Learn right now. I must say, you walk in and it's clear that students have really figured out this particular process of when there's a good time to go in and eat at the cafeteria, and some kids just sit in the cafeteria. I know that students at the high school right now always know that there's a place to sit in the cafeteria to eat, or go somewhere in the building where they can connect with a teacher or a peer. There are some concerns, challenges, let me rephrase that, in terms of cafeteria flow. So I know at Harriton right now they set up different stations to help manage the flow of the cafeteria, where they're selling food in different parts of the building, and Lower Merion is looking at that. It's a little more difficult with the way their traffic flows from the cafeteria in the hallway. So they are also looking at continuing ways to manage the traffic and the flow. So that is the short presentation, and I'll take any questions at this point.
Just before, they're also, the schools are working on a number of opportunities. So I got an email, excuse me, earlier today from Sean Hughes, Vice Admiral Herman Shalansky, Lower Merion Class of 74, the current Naval Inspector General, will be talking to 11th grade U.S. history classes during Lunch and Learn for a half hour. So I think those opportunities are really important and nice for kids too.
Dr. Gilbert.
Thank you for the presentation, and it's really exciting to see the strategic plan in some aspects coming to life, and I've heard really good things from students about it. I noticed under the challenges is the revision and reconsideration of emergency procedures, and I know that's a a significant area we've got to pay attention to. Obviously, if you've got all it's obvious what the issues are. So have we put into place, so if there's an emergency, are there points where kids go to? Is that the way it's going to work, or what are we doing, I guess,
So,
is my question.
there are procedures that the building principals are working through. So, for example, if there were a lockdown drill, teachers would, just like they would any other day, go into the hallway, bring as many students in. They do sweeps within the restrooms to, call out anyone. So procedures are very much intact and the same. as they would on the everyday flow within the building. I know that both principals have also talked about running a particular fire drill or a lockdown drill during that particular time to manage and to practice those sorts of situations. So I know that there's conversations around that and planning going into that process.
Ben?
Thank you for the presentation. To the extent we still have challenges, I was curious what we're learning from, because other districts had done this before we did. So I don't know, is there any advice they can give us to get through some of these challenges or anything like that?
That's a great question. I don't have a hard answer for that, but I'll definitely speak with the building principals to see the districts that they visited and the challenges that they were having. I know through a lot of the conversation, one of the biggest challenges were really accepting that organized chaos and managing that. And that was something that building leadership and students were going to need to get used to. So I will follow up with the building principals on that and provide an update.
Dr. Golden?
Like Melissa, only maybe even more systematically, I've been trying to take an informal survey of every 9th through 12th grader that I've encountered. And it was exactly as Ms. Hockfield said, that it would be the first few weeks they didn't like it because it was chaotic, and they pretty quickly came to really appreciate it. The one thing that's been consistent among their recognition of challenges is that there's a need, and you saw it in the video, for more seating, more chairs in the halls, because they're all on the floor. They like being out in the halls, but there were a few chairs, but there could be some more, and I think that would probably be a minimal expense.
And great question, thank you, Ms. Golden. Building principals are aware of a lot of empty spaces, and they're in the process of still looking at furniture and ordering furniture for those particular areas in the hallways, in the libraries, in the quiet areas. So that is part of their continued plan as they work through this year.
Any challenges, Mr. Cody, around the quiet rooms if students need a space where they need to actually get some work done and don't want the distractions of other students around them?
There has been no issue that I'm formally aware of within the quiet areas. I've had the opportunity to walk into the quiet areas at Lower Merion and Harriton. Lower Merion is in where the tech center is, and the quiet area at Harriton is room 170. I've had the experience to walk in there during quiet areas, and it's exactly what it is. It's quiet. You almost think like there's nobody in the room when you walk in and you peek and you see about 8 to 10 students sitting down doing work there with the support of some of their teachers. So it truly is a place where students, when they really need that quiet time to really focus on work, that's really what they're doing with very minimal talking. And students that need that collaboration go to a more collaborative space within the building. So the quiet areas are being utilized for exactly what they need to be utilized for.
Thank you. Lori, please.
Sorry, I hate to be so vocal tonight. Maybe it's because it's my penultimate meeting. But the other anecdote that just to share is that, and it's very much an anecdote, but just tonight, my daughter, who will not say what grade she got on a test, but not a good one, and she said, I'm going to go to lunch and learn tomorrow and meet with Mr. So-and-so. So they are using it for its intent of lunching and learning and availing themselves, and the teachers are very accessible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pollard?
Yeah. And I just wanted to say, just observing and listening, doing homework. Many times when our students go home, they're isolated, but this gives them an opportunity to work in groups and to better understand the subject matter that they're working on. So I think this is wonderful. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cody.
Thank you.
Our second presentation is the status of our elementary guidelines for acceleration. Mr. Klein.
Thank you, Mr. Copeland. Mr. Cody, how do I get it to go to? First time to the podium. Thank you. One of the first things that came to my attention when I started in Lower Merion was the need for some uniformity in the acceleration of students at our elementary school. And I'll go through this because the definitional part of this is as important as the process part in terms of what we're talking about. So what we aren't talking about tonight is the 5th grade math acceleration. That's a different set of protocols. This issue is when a parent or teacher or both feel that that child needs to be accelerated either through grade level or through subject matter. So in the acceleration guidelines as we're building them, grade level acceleration talks about moving the child to the next grade level. Content area or subject matter acceleration would be to move for just a single content, mostly language arts or math, to the next available grade level. The issue and the reason this came forward from the elementary principals was we didn't have a uniform process. We had conversations around it and we had movement in many different ways, but not necessarily the same. And faced with these very difficult decisions, there was a need to actually take a look at putting together process for this. So the first thing we wanted to identify was a team that would meet with parents and parents would be part of that would actually address this issue. In many cases, we are talking about a symmetry between the gifted IEP team and the acceleration team, and oftentimes they will look and feel the same. But for purposes of acceleration, the team will be the principal and people that are in front of you there. We've divided the process into 2 kinds of screenings. The first one is a level 1 screening, which is really looking at the existing data on a student and trying to understand through that data whether we are challenging that student at his or her grade level. Now, the acceleration team that's working with me met today, actually met about 2 hours ago, and much of what the curriculum committee of the board gave us in terms of feedback, we've actually assimilated into the guidelines. So for right now, while there's a parent checklist and a staff checklist, we've actually moved that on to level 2 screening to get much of the new data that has to come in on the child on the level 2 area, and let level 1 really just be a look at existing data. So again, a lot of the feedback that we received at the curriculum committee meeting on Wednesday, we've already assimilated. We looked at percentages and cleaned them up. We took that look at very clear timelines within the process so that a parent or a teacher going into this knows exactly how much time each of these levels will go. So if a student is successful going through level 1 screening, then we'll go to level 2. If not, there will be an opportunity to meet with the parents, since they're part of this team, to go over the data, and then there will be obviously some kind of dissent mechanism within the process too. At level 2, we're looking at what are called next level benchmark exams. So if a student is in grade 3 and seeking grade 4 acceleration, we're going to go through the benchmark exams in the next grade level or in the existing grade level to see if they've mastered that content to move on to the next grade level. We're also looking for other kinds of objective measures. So the SCAT testing is one area of exam. There's also a new Iowa test of basic skills that we'll look at. And then finally, if we're looking at grade level acceleration only, the opportunity for a child to move from 3rd grade to 4th grade, we will look at what's called the Iowa Acceleration Scale, which has a lot of data collection and a lot of collaboration involved. It talks about the social emotional well-being of the child as well as the academic achievement of the child, and it allows for a collaborative effort between the parents and all of the people who work with the child to get a final data analysis on whether this would be in the best interest of that student. If there's a decision to accelerate, then one of the things that was very clear in terms of our conversations with teachers, with parents, with others, was we need to make sure that there is a very clear transition plan for that student moving forward. If the decision is not to accelerate, then the team itself through the case manager will articulate in writing what the reasons were and how they got to that decision. Acceleration in both of these cases talks about something that's relatively extraordinary. In many cases, in every grade level, there is a very solid level of enrichment that occurs at the grade level, and that needed to be articulated and understood too. And one of the things I heard back from both teachers, from the administrators, and also from the board is we need to make sure that those enrichment opportunities are relatively uniform too, that it's not happening in one school differently from the other. Each school will have its own character, and you're never going to have them completely lockstep. But if one program of enrichment is available in one school and not in another, that's a deficit we need to correct. And so we're working on those pieces too. And then finally, once again, I just want to reiterate that in many of these cases, but not all, the acceleration guidelines allow for the possibility that the student may not be identified as a student in need of mentally gifted services, but still may benefit from one of these kinds of accelerations. We'll take a look at that. But in many cases, the students we're looking at will have met GIEP standards, will be students who have been identified, and we need to make sure that the same process that we're going through in terms of acceleration meets the requirements of Chapter 16 and the gifted program. Once again, I just want to reiterate, there were some very good questions that came up on Wednesday. All of that information went back to our team. We are still in process. It's amazing how something that you think would be relatively straightforward, after it's been through a number of filters, has taken us a little while to develop, and will probably be another month before we have everything completely in place. But when we're done, we'll have a uniform set of guidelines across 6 elementary schools that then can be accessed and understood. And the next question will be whether we need to turn this into administrative regulation or an AR that actually references these guidelines and how we actually put them into practice. So I'm happy to answer any other questions for you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein, and thank you for incorporating a number of the questions that came up just on Wednesday, you and Mr. Cody, around some of these important issues. Ms. Ackman?
I just really have a comment. I was not participating at the committee level, but I'm glad the administration is exploring this and creating just a pathway that will be uniform. It's something that I grappled with with one of my kids, and there's been a lot of ad hoc information kind of circulating around, none of it consistent. So I just think this is a good thing to do. So
thanks. Thank you.
Questions? Please, Dr. Golden.
Mr. Copeland just a few hours ago shared with us some of the scholarly literature on this, and I guess I just want to raise the concern that acceleration may have positive academic effects, but there is some reasons for being cautious about it in terms of the tracking that it creates, or the atmosphere and the elitism, and that I think is a big issue in this district. And so I think we should be mindful of that, as well as the socio-emotional intelligence of the students that we're advancing.
Absolutely, and we're very mindful of that. I do think that in the conversations that have occurred around this subject, one of the most important things is whether the child has the maturation to move forward. And yet, we've labored for a long time under the fact that social and emotional component actually might be a detriment to that. A lot of the research suggests that that's not as major a factor as it should be, or at least as it was once believed. But the interesting part about it is when you go through the actual process in this terminal part where you go through the Iowa Basic Acceleration Scale, that social emotional part is an important component part of the entire scale score that you get for a student.
I don't just mean the student's maturity, but that then it creates in them a sense of entitlement and hubris because they know that they've been identified, and that's my big concern.
I understand. Okay.
You know, if one of the things that I didn't have a chance to share all the research with you in one day, but if you look at it, you get a fairly high bump effect size, whatever you want to call it. Interestingly enough, you look at the work of Henry Levin, who was former president of Teachers College. He says and has said for some years, if the strength that students who are accelerating is there, what about students who are having some difficulties? And so the concept of acceleration isn't just lodged with what we would traditionally consider high-achieving students. In fact, if there are students who, let's say they were in third grade and they're supposed to be in a fifth grade level, if they make a year's growth every year, they're constantly 2 years behind. The trick has always been for kids who are having difficulty of acceleration is the way you got to move faster if you're going to catch up. So I'll be sure to share more research.
One additional comment, not to counterpoint that, but for kids who actually need acceleration because they literally have consumed all the curriculum available to them or what their teachers think is allowable to give them, and that was something that personally happened to my child. That kid is then bored and not engaged and checked out of school. So when you think about social emotional impacts, there's definitely, you got to make things available to the kids who need it. So again, I'm glad you're exploring this because my experience was teachers felt like they were not allowed to go beyond a certain point because there were limits on the curriculum that they were allowed to teach. So I think it's great to explore.
One of the look-fors in this is redundancy to avoid. So when you see the redundancy taking place, that's generally a sign that the child's captured it, he's going over it and over it and over it. What's the next step?
Thanks again for this. I've been thinking about this a lot since the meeting the other day, and I would love to see some of that research on the social emotional effects because while it was only just the one article that we got this afternoon, my concern is this should be a really exceptional situation. We should not have the problem that Lori just described in our curriculum. I mean, our curriculum, curriculum acceleration is one thing, and I think we really have to evaluate carefully what we offer and make sure that our students are getting what they individually need without necessarily having to jump them a grade. The piece that I'm concerned about is if you take a third grader and turn them into a fourth grader at age 9 or 8, right? Is there a difference by the time they're in high school? Or if they had gotten the curriculum, would they still be taking calculus in 10th grade instead of 12th? I mean, I don't know that long term, this is always in the best interest of the child. And I think that has to be looked at very carefully. A number of years ago, there was a very popular book came out called The Harried Child. And it was all about how we're pushing our kids, and we need to just let our kids be kids. And while I'm all for accelerating academically students in the way that they want and need, I think we have to be very careful when we start messing too much with social structures and an 8-year-old can certainly socialize with a 9-year-old when you're talking a 14-year-old to, who's maybe a 13 or 14-year-old now in 9th grade, who's in same classes with 12th graders. Now you're talking big difference there. There's a big difference there. And, high school's vertical as opposed to elementary school that's horizontal. So, I mean, there's an awful lot. So I want to say that I think we need to be really, really careful that this is an exceptional, if we're doing the grade level acceleration, that it is an exceptional situation. And I would love to see the historic data on this. How many times over the last 10 years have we accelerated a student in elementary school, for example? How many do we anticipate with the moving forward of this initiative?
So we've begun to gather that data, and I'll be happy to share it with the board. I think it is extraordinary. I don't think it is something that is done cavalierly. I think we're also, as we publish these guidelines, a little concerned about opening the floodgate. So it's important that the guidelines be tight, they be research-based, and they be well enforced in the first year or two to make sure that there's non-anomalies that come out of that. But in the final analysis, it's what's in the best interest of every child, and every child has some unique abilities, and every child has the ability to move forward and back. And the process points are all about the opportunity to understand that from the perspective of what's in the best interest of the child.
Other questions? Dr. O'Leary.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for doing the work, and I asked you 100 questions the other day, so I'll only have 2 tonight. The socio-emotional factors in the IO acceleration exam, they're sort of divided into 2 sections, if I remember correctly. My first question is, will any of those factors come into phase 1, and how will you tease
No.
those up?
Likely
at all.
not. Level 1 data after we finished with the committee meeting today was really just an assessment of the work that the child has been doing, that initial meeting with the parent, and then a team decision to whether moved to level 2 or not. In many cases, if the child's name comes forward, the level 1 data is probably going to suggest a level 2 screening, but not always. But we wanted to save a lot of that data into the second round, where we actually really looked at whether the child's performance on the next level of assessments would indicate the need for at least an indicator for acceleration.
And can you just talk a little bit about how this will be, I guess, communicated to the parents, and as you go forward in finalizing this, will there be feedback, or how do you see people participating?
So I am hopeful that I can see it to its end, number one. I do think that the next step, once we have what we think is a fair draft, is to circulate it to the board and to bring it in front of a small group of parents to give us some feedback too. And then absolutely at some point in time, it should be published, should go out for a larger feedback loop. But right now, the purpose of this was really to do exactly this, to invite the conversation and begin getting some feedback, because the initial feedback already helped us sharpen this up. And when we can put it in front of a couple folks who have gone through this experience and give us more feedback, we'll have a better chance to have protocols and guidelines that fit the needs of our kids in our schools.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very
You're
much,
quite
Mr.
welcome.
Klein. Mr. Copeland?
That concludes our report.
We will now take audience recognition on non-agenda items. If you could come forward and sign up with Ms. LaPera. If you're interested in giving public comment, there is a 3-minute limit. Thank you. And also, if you could let us know your name and your place of residence in the community.
I think so. May I just close this computer top? Is that okay? No, you may not. No? Okay. That's okay. Then I just, that's fine. That's okay. Okay. Yeah, thank you. That's okay. I'm good. Thank you. Hi, how are you?
If I don't want to talk, can I still support you, or should I talk to support you? I'm fine with that. I can talk. I'm fine.
Okay, great. Yes. Do we have to put her name up if you were to support you? Yeah, just say even I support you. Okay, that's great. Thanks. Very nice to meet you, Shanice.
We can go ahead and start. Please, Ms. Noor.
Thanks. Amy Noor, Penn Valley. Good evening. I'm here to talk about the stress level of our high school students, which is high and disturbing. But we can do something about it. The two issues I highlight tonight both relate to stress. were raised as significant issues during the recent election debate and are of concern to many parents and students. First, our district's grading scale. Our numerical grading scale differs from that of most of our neighboring districts. I request that you please review our grading scale this school year to determine if it should be made consistent with peer schools. Doing so would reduce pressure on our high school students, as they would be on the same academic playing field as those in peer high schools and not at a potential disadvantage in the college admissions process. My letters to the board dated May 14th and October 30th provide greater detail, including the grading scales in 21 other local school districts. The second issue related to stress is the high school start time. As this board is aware from the ISC Committee's May 1st report, as well as from the 1,200 student responses to the June sleep survey, the district faces a serious problem, sleep deprivation in our teenagers. Research has shown that lack of sleep is a significant impairment, one that is tied to mental and physical health issues, sports injuries, and drowsy driving accidents and fatalities, particularly in teen drivers. Furthermore, too little sleep impairs learning, concentration, memory, and academic achievement, particularly for students at the lower end of the academic spectrum. Adequate sleep, however, is like a miracle drug. It's been called a panacea for well-being and resilience. Later school start times, which allow for more sleep, are linked to fewer of the problems noted above, and in short, place children in a better position to learn, both in and out of school. In August 2014, the American Academy of Pediatrics stated, "Chronic sleep loss in children and adolescents is one of the most common and easily fixable public health issues in the United States today." The AAP and a year later the CDC each recommended that middle and high schools start at 8:30 a.m. or later to boost student health and learning. Our district's strategic plan puts a high priority on the social, emotional, and physical well-being of students. However, our high school start time of 7:30 a.m. conflicts with this goal. Please convene a committee representing all relevant constituencies to develop options to address high school students' need for more sleep, and in particular to consider adjustments to the school start times. This board has stressed that it will be vigilant in ensuring that students' holistic needs are addressed. These two issues, the grading policy and high school start times, present the perfect opportunity for doing so. I hope that you can respond to the community's strong interest in these issues by publicly sharing your plans to address them in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Sigal Ben-Porath. I'm a parent from Penguin. I have two high schoolers now, one a freshman and one a senior. Since I'm going to repeat very briefly most of what Amy said, and I think you're going to hear it more than once tonight, I just wanted to take 20 seconds of my time to really respond positively to the conversation about lunch and learn. Both my children, the new one and the more seasoned one at Lower Merion High School, are really enjoying lunch and learn and find it a very productive opportunity to both lunch, food, friends, and learn. And I think it's been a very productive change for those who were there before and also for the new kids. I think the most important part of it is really giving an opportunity for the students to have FaceTime with the teachers. And this is really the biggest change that it created. It's better than the advisory model that we had before, in that it allows kids a more informal way to interact and make up work, etc. Other than a parent, I'm also a professor of education at Penn, and the research on high school start time is really out there. The American Pediatric Association, the CDC, and other organizations all recognize that we are doing it wrong. And the reason we are doing it wrong is because we are used to doing it wrong, and it's not a good reason. The other reason is that is often provided is the sports schedule, which again are not a good reason to harm the well-being of all the children, including the athletes, as a result of the way that we've been doing our start time. We should flip the start time and have the elementary schools start earlier. because younger children can wake up earlier without any harm to their well-being, whereas the older children naturally tend to go to sleep later because of activities and because of their circadian cycle, and allowing for them to sleep an hour later supports all the good outcomes that Amy was mentioning, as well as significant increases in their mental health and well-being, which is something that I know is a concern for many of our high school parents and staff people, and should be at the forefront of our concerns as well. There's an easy fix for it, and I really would hope that the current administration and the school board would consider fixing this issue. We've been struggling to get it on the agenda for 4 years now. I do hope it moves forward soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening. My name is Barnes Bierk. I have a child at Marion Elementary and one at Ballackinwood Middle School, and been interested, as the closer my children get to high school, the more concerned I get about starting time. Looking at the mission statement for the district, it's committed to excellence and continuous improvement, and strives to ensure that all students achieve their highest level of critical thinking. Well, they will be better able to achieve their highest level of critical thinking if they're getting sufficient sleep. Just to reiterate a little, the data and the research and the recommendations by various professional organizations is clear. You can study it all you want, but the data is, and the research results are what they are. And I'd also add that there's a lot of interesting information on other school districts in the country that have made this change. It can be done without, it takes work, there'll be some work involved, but I think the decision has to be made first to do it and then figure out how to do it, rather than study how to do it first. Let's look at a goal of getting it done, and then figure out the logistics. The logistics will not necessarily be easy, but it can be done. I've done a little more research on this of late, and the issue of sports has come up a couple of times, but the answer to that is athletes do better if they're getting more sleep, and their bodies will respond better to the exercise that they're getting if they're getting more sleep. I'd also have two suggestions if you do have an advisory committee of some sort. One would be to make its charge very short. Give it a couple of months. Don't make this a long, drawn-out study, because it'd be nice to see a compendium of the research and recommendations by the experts, but that wouldn't be hard to assemble for you all to put together and really grasp this as being something that really is in the best interest of the students. That's your cover. This is the best thing for the students. It has to be done. The other suggestion I have is put some students on the if you do appoint some kind of advisory committee, let some of the students help lead the way. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, and again, what I've seen around the country at some schools, a number of districts that have made this change, the students have been very interested in helping lead the way on this. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hi, I'm John Clark, and I'm from Wynwood, and I'm the parent of 4 Lower Merion graduates and 1 current Harriton Junior. And I rise to support the effort to look at sleep with an anecdote, and then to also, since the subject came up tonight, mention another anecdote about acceleration. Next Tuesday, my daughter will be taking a school-mandated trip. We've been told that we should expect her to step off the bus after this trip at midnight. She will be expected to step on the bus at 7 o'clock the next morning. So that's some low-hanging fruit with regard to sleep right there. With regard to acceleration, the issue came up about sociocultural assimilation versus boredom. And my daughter was accelerated through the second grade. She went from first grade to third grade, and she was further accelerated in the math program and in Spanish. And so she was taking some courses with seniors when she was 14 years old. And she did very well. The social acclimation was not a problem compared to the boredom that would have come from having already mastered the material. So I'm strongly supportive of the idea of putting a child where they need to be so that they're intellectually engaged in the process. The rest will follow.
Thank you. Next speaker? You have your next
Oh, I'm sorry,
speaker.
it's Susan, it begins with the last name, it begins with an A. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Susanna Tilisoy, and I thank you for the opportunity to express my opinion. As a mother of four, a pediatrician, and especially as a child advocate, I am here to discuss the problem of inadequate student sleep and the real solution, which is later school start times. The message regarding sleep and start times needs to be heard yet again, and acknowledged by the school board and the administration. I understand that the Interschool Council has addressed the board previously with an extensive report in May of this year. I am here to add a voice to this worthy cause. Paying no heed to them or dismissing the recommendations from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the American Academy of Pediatrics, of which I am a member, is an injustice to our children. Inadequate sleep clearly contributes to the following problems: chronic fatigue, anxiety, depression, poor concentration, stress, tardiness, obesity, and of course, teen accidents. Lower Merion School District should take the lead in making this change that will improve the health of our youngsters. A start time of 8:30 a.m. as recommended by the AAP should be our goal. We cannot achieve the district's mission to holistically educating our students if the student body is deprived of sleep. As elected school board members, you need to realize the facts and set a target date for later school start times. Ask yourselves, what is holding you back? Is it inertia, disagreement with the evidence, prioritizing team sports, or difficulty reconfiguring a bus schedule? I support and commend the diligent work the Interschool Council has been doing on this issue, and I know they will facilitate this change and help you in any way that they can. As Judith Owens, a physician and sleep expert, recently said, to do nothing is to do harm. Therefore, I urge you, take action now. Our children deserve a healthier and more productive experience at school. And using the school mottos, the district's motto, enter to learn, go forth to serve. We have already learned the facts. Now let's go forth to serve and lead by example. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Liz Maslow. I'm trying to get my timer back.
Liz Maslow, Villanova. I'm the parent of 3 children. My 2 oldest children, one just got her master's degree and the other is a junior at Drexel. And I thought it was interesting that my oldest daughter, who struggled very hard in high school, she did do very well, but she lost a lot of sleep. She woke up every day with stomach aches. When she got into college, she found it easy. And they both tell me, both my older children tell me, it is so much easier getting up and getting to school and getting to class by 8:30 than it was trying to get to school by 7:20. So I thought that was interesting. I just want to commend Amy for bringing this all together and putting this out there, and I totally concur with both of her topics. As Amy already stated, our high school students are stressed, and we need to be concerned about that. It's our obligation. If there are changes that we can make to make it a little bit easier on them while they work so hard to do the things that they do, then we have to seriously consider those changes. So as a parent of a junior in high school, a stressed junior in high school, who works very hard to get the best grade she can, I also request that you please review our grading scale this school year, if possible, to determine if it should be made consistent with our academic peer schools. And as far as the sleeping late, that seems like a no-brainer. We have all of the scientific research and data that you need to make this decision. And that's all I'd like to say.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Ellen Keefe.
Because this is my least favorite thing to do. Ellen Keefe, Penn Valley. Quote, schools must meet the needs of students, not the other way around, end quote. Superintendent Copeland shared that sentiment at the first Interschool Council meeting in September, and I couldn't agree more. However, I am concerned about what appears to be a wait-and-see attitude regarding school start times. While it would definitely be easier if a coalition of schools were to simultaneously decide to change high school start times, I do not think we should wait for that to happen. Lower Merion will face unique challenges if any changes in the school day are implemented. And it is imperative that we begin the conversation with all the major stakeholders, students, staff, parents, community members, business representatives, and local government officials now. Nothing happens quickly in Lower Merion. It will take time both to thoroughly involve the community and to plan a thoughtful, effective approach. We need to start the conversation now for the sake of our kids. Therefore, I respectfully request that LMSD convene a sleep and school start time steering committee to develop options to address high school students' needs for more sleep, and in particular to consider adjustments to school start times. Unlike the sleep issue, which will require many months of study and community engagement, the LMSD grading policy can be corrected relatively quickly to benefit our kids and families. In fact, I have a child at home tonight who would like you to do it now. In addition to the stress-related issues emphasized by Amy and some of the other speakers, there is a potential financial implication of our grading scale that I recently became aware of as I have two Harriton seniors. Over the last year, I've spent a good amount of time visiting colleges and talking with admission personnel. At one school, I learned that merit scholarships of $17,000 per year are available for students with a 90 or better average. For most Greater Philadelphia schools, this means an A or an A-, and is simple to determine. But not so with our grading scale. An LMSD student with a 90 or 91 average is a B+ student. By distinguishing our students in this way, our district may be harming them both financially and in the college admissions process. I have no idea how many of these situations exist, but just knowing of the one causes me to question why LMSD would maintain such a different grading scale from its peer districts. Thank you for your time tonight and going forward as you address these two very important issues. And please keep the community informed regarding the process as to how you plan to address both issues. We need to hear from you. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Sam Shalansky.
Good evening, everybody. How are you? Everybody doing all right? Sam Shalansky from Wynwood. Mr. Copeland. Mr. Copeland. How you doing? I just wanted to congratulate you and welcome to the district. Little family history, Mr. Copeland. My parents bought their house in Wynwood in 1962. They've been here over 50 years. In those 50 years, they put 5 kids through school, including the Vice Admiral that's coming Wednesday to Lower Merion and Harriton to talk. He happens to be the Inspector General of the Navy. So we all got very good educations here. It's been a great district. It's always been a leader. They put 4 grandchildren through the school district, and then the final 3 are my children. An 8th grader in Welsh Valley, 9th grader at Harriton, and 11th grader at Harriton. So like I said, Lower Merion used to be a leader. In some ways we still are, but in many ways we're not. And my point is we need to lead again. A point was made earlier, I think Ben made a point when we were talking about lunch and learn. And we obviously were not the first ones to do this. But he said we can learn from other school districts that have done that. Well, it's good that we did. I think Lunch and Learn is an incredible idea. Both my children in Harriton enjoy it and have great benefits from it. It can become, I went to a session the other day with Dr. Fina. There's some suggestions. We talked about how to make it better as well, and there are some suggestions which I don't want to go into now. I want to focus on leading, and I think that we need to be leaders. We need to help our children succeed. We should know, with the subject of later start times, I think that we need to lead and not see what other school districts are doing. Many districts throughout the country are doing this now, as Amy said, and has written in her letters, and I think that now we have the opportunity to learn from them and see what they're doing. One of the reasons that kids are getting less sleep now is because of the amount of homework. Kids have a ton of homework, which I don't want to go into. That's another subject. But of course, more homework, less sleep is more anxiety, more stress, more depression, less concentration, worse grades, and unhappy students. So all I would like to say is let's push forward and let's not take a wait and see philosophy on this subject matter. Let's be the leaders in our local district. Let's not wait for the other districts. Let's be the leaders and they will follow. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Is it Farida Ahmed?
If you are interested in making public comment, would you please sign up with Ms. LaPera right now so we know where we're going to close the list? Is everyone signed up?
You can go ahead. Mark.
Hi, I'm the parent of 2 middle school children, and I'm here to support that the district takes an in-depth look at the school start time issue. I'm already seeing how my children are affected by it, and I seriously want the district to look into this matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Stephanie Newberg?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I too support the 2 platforms that Amy brought to your attention tonight. I feel extremely strongly as both a therapist of many adolescents in this township that I work with, as well as my daughter who's in 10th grade, that to begin with, that changing the grading system to make it more equitable with the other peer school districts would be a great enhancement to her situation, as well as to the many teens that I see and work with. I think they're at a great disadvantage, both financially, as Ellen pointed out, and also in respect to their other peers when they're applying for colleges, that there's just a lot of confusion around where their grades fall compared to others, and I don't think that a school district of this caliber should be letting students go forward in a disadvantaged way. I think if anything, they should be in a grade advantage, so I think that's something to really consider and look at, and I think changing it to a 90 for an A- or an A would just make a huge difference and wouldn't be a very hard thing to implement. I also think that looking at the start time is also extremely beneficial, and I think just having students have a little bit more sleep in the morning would make an enormous difference for all the reasons that have been stated. So I greatly appreciate you looking into and thinking about those 2 issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Shannon Knight?
If I could remind everyone to just say where you live in the township.
Sure. Hi, I'm Shannon Knight, and I live in Wynwood. I have a daughter who is currently in 5th grade at Penguin Elementary. And the reason I'm here tonight is to give my support to you, as you might guess, the sleep, the later start time for allowing our kids to sleep just a bit later. Pretty much everybody said all the things I thought of saying about the research that's out there, the American Academy of Pediatrics study that came out last August, or August 2014. Everything leads to the idea that a later start time at the earliest 8:30 a.m. just makes sense. One thing that no one did mention is that the earlier start times have been shown to lead to lower test scores. In addition to the physical detriment, the mental health issues, suicide rates increasing, all sorts of things. Other school districts have changed and seen direct improvements related to later start times. And I'm really hoping that y'all can make a decision on this by the end of the school year, because my daughter starts middle school next fall. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Karen Shapiro.
Hi, thanks so much. I'm from Haverford. I have two kids. One is a freshman in college and one is a junior at Harriton. I also just want to say thank you to you all, because I rarely get to say thank you for everything that you do. I basically just want to express my support for everything that Amy Noor said. I think she put it beautifully, and I support her. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Melissa Bowman.
Hi, my name is Melissa Bowman. I'm from Narberth, and I have two children at Lower Merion School District. And I, too, would like to say I just feel incredibly fortunate to be raising my kids in this district and have you as a school board. I feel incredibly fortunate. I'm from Bucks County, and we didn't even begin to touch what we can do here. And my husband is a German pediatrician, raised in Germany, and has fallen in love with our school district and feels exactly the same way, that we feel very blessed to be here. We have a son who has some emotional issues and has an IEP, and the district has only come through for us, and he's in 9th grade now and really shining. And our daughter, she's plugging along in 11th grade under the traditional typical stress that an 11th grader feels, who is teetering between A's and B's. So on that note, I just would like to echo exactly what everybody else is echoing, and just ask that we try to reduce the level of stress having a child who, especially two children actually, one who has some pretty severe anxiety and another who has some depression issues, to reduce the stress wherever we can. And if that means that there's something that we can actively do in terms of reducing the stress with the grades, making a simple change, and also encouraging these kids to get the sleep that they need. It's not even about want, it's really about need, to help their mood and to help their success in their academics. We would greatly appreciate any work that you could do to help us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Nancy Silverman.
Hi. Get over this podium. Good evening. I live in Bala-Cynwyd. I'm a clinical psychologist at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. I have 3 children, 2 of whom graduated from Lower Merion schools, and 1 of whom is currently a sophomore. I have witnessed firsthand the physical, emotional, and mental toll of chronic sleep deprivation. I think the data are clear, and I think it's time to take a really hard look and a serious look at what we can do to improve the lives of all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Joel Johnson.
Good evening, Joel Johnson, Ardmore. I have 2 sons in the district, one at Penn Valley and one at Welsh Valley. I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening, and I would like to echo an earlier comment for thanking all of the school board members who dedicate so much time. I think a lot of residents don't realize how much time goes into all the school boards meetings and evenings like this, and it really is amazing. So thank you for all that you do. It really is a thankless job. So I know the residents that I speak with certainly appreciate everything that you do. I certainly appreciate the passion and enthusiasm and I think well-reasoned science behind all of the speakers this evening. And there may be some very valid areas to consider going forward, but I would offer just a little bit of a counterpoint in that I have the fortune or misfortune of being a public sector executive for the last 20 years or so. And it would seem to me that to responsibly move forward in this type of policy shift would frankly take a great deal of time and energy from the entire community to implement, not just you can't just flip a switch and have the schools start later. So it seems to me that would be a significant, and it should be, to do it responsibly, a significant considerations, public input, et cetera, et cetera. It seems to me that could take a tremendous amount of time for the district to embark on at this time, when, in my view, I think there are a number of other priorities that I would personally rank above this particular issue. Not saying it doesn't have merit and it's not worth exploring, but I think, frankly, the issue of the achievement gap is something that this district's been facing for probably going on a better part of 2 decades now. And I've had the fortune to serve on the CARE committee and served on the strategic planning committee. And certainly part of the strategic plan, again, the title, all forward. All forward. And unfortunately, this district, with all of the resources that we have, are leaving, frankly, a small number, but even a small number is too many kids behind, kids of color. And when you look at the data, it's probably 35, 40, maybe 45 kids per grade. And to put it in context, this district spends over $1 million a day. Every school day, we spend $1 million, more than $1 million. It just seems to me, with all the resources that we have in this district, we could do a better job of touching and impacting in a positive way maybe 40 kids who get caught up in the achievement gap per grade. So again, I think there's probably some merit to what all of the previous speakers mentioned this evening, but in my view, I think there's other priorities that the district should focus on at this time. Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Are we done? Look, I gotta go back to my, oh, did you want to speak? Okay.
Can I make a comment?
I'm gonna have Mr. Copeland speak at the moment, Diane.
Thank you. Thank you all for your comments. As many of you know, one of the things that I've been doing since I arrived in Lower Merion is having asked the superintendent conferences where people have come and shared many of the concerns that were shared here tonight. They have not fallen on deaf ears. In fact, the last meeting we had, the issue of grading came up rather to my surprise, and I've already had some administrators taking a look at that. One of the things that happens, though, and one of the things that attracted me to the district was the work that was done around the strategic plan. And it seems to me that so much work and so much emphasis was placed in that process that would be the place that I would like to see many of these issues located. When I started to go through the strategic plan, I actually noticed that there was mention made of the issue of looking at schedules and looking at times, and I think that that's something that has to happen. There was also a lot of discussion about what does student achievement really mean? How should we look at student achievement and student learning? And that, to me, would also include grading. Now, I know that this subject of grading was taken up in 2008. So given the strategic plan, it seems to me that the issue should be raised, but I would recommend, and I'll certainly do whatever the will of the board is, but I'd certainly recommend we at least let the strategic planning process have a shot at both of these activities.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to the public for participating this evening. So with that, we are adjourned. We do have our business meeting this coming Monday, November 16th at 8 p.m. in this room. Thank you again.